Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here for another healthy and nourishing recipe. In this video, I'm going to make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is such a powerful thing to include in your diet every single day, and it's actually very easy to make. It's a bit tedious, but it is easy. And what we need is organic purple cabbage, organic white cabbage, a healthy salt. In this case, I'm using real salt from Utah. We need some filtered water and a container to put our sauerkraut in. In this case, I have a German-made crock pot, which I love, and it comes with its own sort of stone weights. And you'll see how I use it later to weigh down the sauerkraut to make sure that it's underneath the brine water and it doesn't rot. Okay, let's get to it. So cabbage is a wonderful, wonderful, resilient vegetable. I actually intended to make this video early last week, and I bought a bunch of cabbages and then I didn't get to it. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to make the video later that week. So I bought more cabbages and I still didn't get to it. And that is the beauty of cabbage. It will last a long time in the fridge. God bless cabbage and its resilient nature. So we've got here a beautiful white cabbage, and what you want to do is remove the outer leaves. Before I start cutting it, you want to remove the outer leaves. Where's my knife? There you go. And you want to remove the little butt. And because I bought this cabbage last week, some of the outer leaves are a little bit wilted, and that's okay. There have been times that I've gone to the farmer's market and I've gotten cabbages that are bigger than my head, absolutely fresh, delicious. I come home and I immediately make sauerkraut. That is ideal. But if you can't do that, that's fine. Cabbage will last a long time. The problem, of course, is I've had like 8 cabbages in my fridge for over a week and nothing else fits in there. So it's important to keep these outer leaves. You want to save at least 2 big outer leaves, if not maybe 3 or 4 actually. And by outer leaves, I mean sort of these big leaf from the outside we want to save for later. I'll show you what to do. So I'm going to put these big leaves aside from now. I love to use white and purple cabbage because you get this absolutely gorgeous pink fuchsia sauerkraut. Not only that, but it tastes significantly better. So you always want to have a combination of purple and white. Now, purple cabbage is usually double the price of white cabbage, but it's absolutely worth it, and it has a completely different nutrient profile because of its beautiful, beautiful purple color. You know, in nature, bright, bright colors usually mean wonderful vitamin content. So for the purple cabbage, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to save a few of the outer leaves. In this case, my purple cabbage is not that big, but that's okay. I'm gonna save these for afterwards. And now we have sort of these beautiful, beautiful cabbages. I'm going to use 3 white cabbages, 2 big ones, and a little one. So I'm cutting the outer leaves of all the cabbages and saving those. Look at this beautiful big one. You want to get a nice, big outer leaf like this, which is going to help us later in the sauerkraut making process. I am using 2 small purple cabbages today, and that's usually what I use. I'll usually use about 3 to 4 white cabbages and 2 small purple cabbages. And of course, these are my measurements for my 10-liter German crock pot. Depending on the container that you use, you're going to learn what quantities work best for you. So I've separated all my outer leaves and put them aside, and now I'm going to begin cutting the sauerkraut. And of course, this is what takes time. Depending on how many cabbages you're using, this is what I call a character building activity. Not only for adults, but for children. If you have teenagers or children, cutting cabbage for sauerkraut is definitely a character building activity that builds also knife skills in the kitchen. So what we want to do is cut the cabbage in half. Okay. That is the easiest way to start. Okay, I've got my beautiful cabbage, and this is where it can make or break your sauerkraut, okay? If you start hacking apart this cabbage every which way, it's not necessarily going to be the most pleasant experience to eat it. You want to try to be as uniform as you can, and this is where the character building activity comes in. And you want to cut as finely as you can. And you want to switch. So I made a cut this way. Now I want to turn and make a cut sort of diagonally, like so. I'm not exactly sure what to call this. I am not a math person. I don't know what angles I'm doing this at, but you get the idea. Now, I am making an effort for you in making this video. I am the first to admit that I will not necessarily take the time to make this as perfect as I can, but if you do, you will reap the benefits of wonderful, uniform sauerkraut. So you can see it doesn't take that long. You kind of get into a zone of doing this. You put some music, you're good to go. I'm gonna cut a little bit of purple to show you. The purple is just so beautiful, and it's actually a little bit tougher. I don't know why, but purple cabbage usually requires a little bit more oomph. So once again, you want to get that uniform cut, and this is about what you want your cabbage to look like. And I should have done this earlier, but I forgot. You want to cut basically the heart of the cabbage off. I'm gonna come here and fix that. You wanna throw those out. And by heart, what I mean is sort of this tough piece right here. Kind of like you're doing it to an onion, you wanna do the same thing. You kind of cut this tough piece out. You don't wanna eat that, and it's very hard to cut through. Sauerkraut is one of the first things I learned to make when I began to nourish my body about 4 years ago. And it was really frustrating because there were so many recipes, so many people telling you different things, and it took me over a month to figure it out. I made 3 batches of sauerkraut that completely rotted. Of course, I was trying to do it in ball jars. Now, there are people who are total aces and make sauerkraut perfectly in ball jars or in a glass jar of some sort. I was not one of these people, okay? If you let the sauerkraut get exposed to air, it will rot. And if you have a jar, you're trying to weigh it down with a variety of different things, from stones to another smaller glass jar full of water, or a special lid they sell. I did all these things, and it still didn't work out. So I finally said, I'm done. I'm done. The Germans have figured this out. They've been doing this for eternity. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's when I got my German crock pot, and I have made perfect sauerkraut for 3 years. I've never looked back. A lot of times I get frustrated because people's recipes aren't practical or they don't make sense. And when I go through it and I do it myself, I think, why didn't you tell me this? Why didn't you? This could be so much easier. That's part of the reason I'm making these videos for you guys, because I've been through the trenches trying to make this food, and I figured it out. It is an efficient process for me now, and now it can be an efficient process for you. Once you get to a certain point cutting the cabbage, you're going to get creative with some of the leftover pieces. Essentially, you just want to have these nice thin pieces like so. So for this, okay, I'm just going to do this. Wait, okay, don't cut your fingers off. Actually, that leads me to the fact that there are special cabbage cutters, sort of like mandolin cabbage cutters, and I definitely considered getting them when I was starting this process, but I have enough problems with the cheese grater and the carrot grater. I did not want to slice my hand off with a cabbage cutter of some sort. Although I have to tell you that if I were to get my hands on a traditional German or Russian or Eastern European type of cabbage cutter, like some kind of heirloom or wooden tool, I would love that. But as it is, I just simply make my life easier. A knife is perfectly fine. Although, you just saw I almost cut my finger. Don't do that. I am very accident prone in the kitchen. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. Just be careful. So I'm halfway through cutting my cabbage and it's only taken a couple of minutes. Sauerkraut is a type of wild fermentation. The bacteria in the leaves of the raw cabbage are what produce the fermentation process, are what start the fermentation process. They're lactic acid bacteria, among others, and they're just absolutely wonderful. And that's another reason why you want to get organic cabbage. So I've got a nice big pile of cabbage right here. Beautiful. It's about half my cabbage that I've chopped. And now I'm going to start putting it in the crock pot. A lot of people, you will see, will have their kraut and they will start sort of making it in a different container in sort of like a plastic bowl or some sort and start kneading it there. I don't do that. I don't have time to do that. As you guys know, being healthy takes time and effort. So I try to maximize everything I can in the kitchen to try to be effective and get what I need to do fast, but also effectively. There is no need to waste time doing this in a separate container and then transferring it to your final container. When you're doing it in a ball jar, yeah, you have to do that because your hand does not fit inside the ball jar to do what you need to do. But that is the beauty of using the German crock pot, where the opening here is wide enough for your hand to go in and do the job you need to do and make your life easier. It certainly makes my life easier, and if my life is easier, then your life will be easier. So what you want to do is start with about an inch layer of cabbage, and I'm going to start with white. Notice that I have it, in this case in the sink, a little bit lower than me. That's a little bit easier. If I go up like this, it's going to be harder for me to deal with this. So that's why I've put it in the sink. Just makes it easier. So I have about an inch of cabbage in the pot. I'm going to add another nice tablespoon of salt in here. And this is where it starts to get a little bit fun. And this is where you're going to start massaging the cabbage, because what happens is massaging the cabbage basically starts the fermentation process. So you want to get in there with your clean hands and start massaging. And this is where doing it in a lower level, it's a little bit easier. The reason people do this in a different container, like I said, is if they're using some kind of narrow container. But even so, a lot of people will just do it separately and shrink it before they put it in here. But I don't see the point in that. I'm back up here so that you can see better. So I'm kneading. By kneading, I mean you're just getting in there and you're squeezing. And I'm going to show you up here. And what I'm doing inside the crock pot that you can see is basically I'm doing this motion right here. This is what you want to do. That is that character building activity I was talking about before, or some kind of Zen activity. A lot of people, some people will spend a good amount of time doing this because the more you do it, the more the cabbage will release its water and essentially shrink as it reacts with the salt. And what that allows you to do is pack the cabbage tighter in the pot and add more cabbage. Now I did about, 20 seconds of kneading maybe? That's it. A lot of people like to wait a couple of hours. They like to knead, wait a couple of hours, come back, do it again. That's not happening in my kitchen. Nobody's got time for that. I'm kneading as I go, 20 seconds with each layer. That's perfectly fine. I have made perfect sauerkraut for 3 years straight doing it this way. There's no need to make things harder than they need to be. And God knows I have a penchant for doing that every so often, but I always learn my lesson, and by the time I make a video for you, that lesson is well learned. So I'm going to finish cutting my cabbage and make a few more layers. I'm adding another beautiful purple layer. This is my third layer. And my third tablespoon of salt. Knead it again for another 20 seconds or so. If this is your first time making sauerkraut, it is really cool to watch it shrink. In fact, I think it's cool every time I do it. There is something to be said about making your own food products, knowing exactly what goes into them, the quality of the ingredients, and just sort of that pride that you get from making your own food. So this is my fourth layer. 20 seconds kneading. And you know what? You can take this opportunity to do some arm workout. So you're seeing me use my right hand. I am right-handed, obviously. So I'm going to make an effort right now to use my left. Okay, there we go. My left does not get enough action, usually, in general. So it is probably weaker. In life, you have to take whatever opportunities you can get to be active. And in this case, making sauerkraut is a perfect opportunity to do some arm and finger and hand exercises. It may sound silly, but that's okay. It's okay to be silly sometimes. It's okay to take advantage of the heavy labor you're doing in the kitchen. Just to show you guys what it looks like, I'm actually going to take some sauerkraut out of my pot and show you what it's starting to look like. Okay, you can see how beautifully moist it is. It's starting to shrink compared to this. You can see how moist it is, how much water it's already. You can see it drip. This is so cool. I get super excited about this kind of stuff. Okay. Fifth layer. And you don't have to get persnickety about it being an inch, okay? Basically around an inch. A little bit less is okay, a little bit more is okay. Fifth layer. I forgot, I'm using my left hand now. Okay, come on, get with the program, Olivia. And so I read that in Russia, or maybe it was Germany, somewhere in Eastern Europe, they had a tradition of having people make sauerkraut barefoot. So you have a tub of cabbage, and then you wash your feet, and then you're stepping on the cabbage, kneading it with your feet. Now, for us, that may seem kind of gross, but it's actually kind of cool if you think about it. You have a lot more strength in your legs, so that would get done fast. Now, I think of it in terms of possibly a really cool activity with kids. Now, you talk about making a batch of sauerkraut that's going to last a while. Get your kids in a tub and step on cabbage. And I'm using my right hand again. My left hand gets no love. I think that the idea of little kids are having basically a tradition. You know, it's okay if you don't use your feet in a tub, but I think it would be really cool to have this monthly or bi-monthly, no, once every 2 months sort of activity where you're making sauerkraut with the family. And the more people who do it, the easier it will be, because you can take turns sort of kneading this and cutting cabbage and doing all these things. I think one of the things missing in modern kitchens is tradition. And I think sauerkraut is one of those perfect opportunities to spend some time with your family, once a month, once every 2 months, depending on how much you make, and sort of have this activity together. Not only is your family going to appreciate the kind of work it takes to make certain foods that are nourishing, but they are going to have their own pride attached to eating sauerkraut every day. 6th layer, definitely messy in this kitchen right now. It's not too bad though. 7th layer, 7th tablespoon of salt. So in the interest of efficiency, I usually need for about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Sometimes I space out and I end up needing for a minute. Bonus. The more you need, whether it's a few extra minutes or a little bit more, the more the cabbage will shrink and the more you will be able to pack into this crock pot. Now a little bit of kneading goes a long way. I mean, I've been kneading maybe a minute or so extra, and the cabbage used to be right here. It is now right here. It's really cool, right? It just sort of went down quite a bit. Before I cut this final purple cabbage, Lone Ranger right here, for my 8th layer, I want to show you once again what it's looking like. Boom, voila. It actually kind of looks like an awesome coleslaw. So delicious, wonderful. Releasing its water, its juice. So cool, I never get tired of this. So now the cabbage is actually halfway to the jar. Now, for me, it's not necessarily today anyway about filling the jar as high as possible. I just need to finish my one cabbage that I have here, that I have left. And the truth is that if I could make more sauerkraut, I would. Absolutely. Sauerkraut will last forever in your fridge. Literally months and months and months. The question here is, how much fridge space do you have? You'll see how this is going to yield about 4 jars, I would say. That's normally what it yields for me. 4 quart jars. What I have here is a 10-liter crock jar, German jar pot, I'm not really sure what to call it, but sauerkraut making pot. The particular brand that I have, they have a 10-liter. No, this is what I have, a 10-liter. They have a 5-liter, so a little bit smaller. My mom actually has that one because she has even less space than I do. And there's a 16-liter and a 26-liter. Now, I would love to have the 26-liter and make, like 6 months worth or more of sauerkraut at once. But I simply do not have the space for it currently. But as it is, for me, this yields, this 10-liter pot, which as you see, it's really not that big, and it's nice enough that I can have it in my kitchen. My mom is actually a potter, or one of her hobbies is pottery, and she made her own and decorated it. There are potters that will do this for you, on commission. So you could have a sauerkraut pot designed for you with the colors that you want. Isn't that really cool? Someday, of course, I would love to do that for myself. Not myself. I can't do pottery to save my life, but have either my mom or somebody else do one for me. One thing to keep in mind that is really important is that you want to make sure you know exactly where your pot is coming from. If you get something at a thrift store, in this particular case, I would not recommend it because many old ceramic stoneware type things have lead-based glazes. Okay, so that is not good when we're talking about fermentation and salt, and no. You want to make sure you have a modern pot that was made with lead-free glaze. Okay, I'm going to do something really cool, I think. I'm going to show you a comparison of what is in the pot, what it looks like with this, okay? Look at that. The fermentation process is well underway. Okay, back in the pot where it belongs. And to finish with our 7th and final layer, which is kind of basically in this case a layer and a half, I think. So I think I'm gonna top this off with 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm sorry, I forget sometimes to finish my sentences. A lot of the times I'm just in my own head, and yeah, I forget to communicate properly. So forgive me when I do that. Kneading the final 8th layer for about 20 seconds. I don't want to overachieve here. Okay, and I'm adding my final 2 tablespoons of salt. Kraut is about here in the pot. And we've gotten to the point where you can get creative when packing this down. Now, I don't need to. The kraut is here, and it's only going to shrink as it gets fermented. But let's say you want to do more, you want to maximize, you have space. How do you pack this down? Well, you kind of punch it. You punch it down. That is the easiest, and get a little bit of your, maybe pent up aggression out of you this way. Or you can also use some things you have around the kitchen that you may not have thought about. Cooking is as much about efficiency as it is about creativity. I've got 2 handy tools here, a potato masher and a Vitamix plastic. I don't know what you call this, but if you have a Vitamix, you know what I'm talking about. It basically pushes the food down into the Vitamix and through the lid to make sure that you don't shred this with the blades. Anything of this nature will work. I have to thank my mom for this Vitamix bit because it actually is kind of cool. I haven't actually done it before. Kind of fun. Pack that down. The potato masher, same thing. Boom. I have to say, doing it right now, the potato masher is not as fun as the Vitamix thing. If you have something similar, you can use this, but if you don't, fist works fine. You can channel your Rocky into this pot. I love Rocky. It's one of the best movies ever made. Thank you, Sylvester Stallone. Kraut is about here in the pot. And I used, 2 big white cabbages, 2 little white cabbages, and 2 little purple cabbages. That is 6 cabbages that somehow fit in here. That is incredible. Which means I could actually fit another 6 here. Now you want to leave some space, so maybe I could have done another 3 for this particular 10-liter pot. When you first make your sauerkraut with whatever container you're using, you're going to learn exactly how far your cabbage goes. And now we've gotten to the final stages of the sauerkraut making process. We have our beautiful sauerkraut packed in here. Now, what do? Well, remember the leaves I told you to save in the beginning? Well, now we're going to use them. Here are our outer leaves that we saved. Boom, and I'm going to show you what I am about to do inside the pot. This is basically an extra layer of protection. And I'm going to top the kraut just like this. The top of that jar, I'm going to go basically make a nice cabbage leaf layer on top. And what that's going to do is it's going to help make sure that that cabbage that we want, that sauerkraut, is submerged in its brine water and does not sort of rise up. So now I'm going to do it inside the pot. It makes your whole sauerkraut process more effective by making sure that finely cut cabbage is packed tightly underneath these layers and that they're not going to kind of float up in the brine water. Now what we want to do is weigh this down with some weights. In this case, another reason why I got this particular crock jar is because it came with its own stones which fit perfectly inside here. Makes my life easier. A lot of people will use rocks that they've collected maybe from a river or something like that and they've sterilized. People will get really creative with this and use sometimes even a ball jar with water, filled with water, to weigh this down. But I don't have to get creative in this case. I'm using my stones and they work perfectly every time. And finally, the last step of this stage of making the sauerkraut. So if you wait a couple of hours and knead it even more, the sauerkraut is going to release its own water, and ideally, of course, it's going to cover itself in its own brine water. But as I said, I'm a fan of efficiency. I'm not going to wait more hours or spend even 20 or 30 minutes kneading this. I'm just not. So I figured out what to do. So this is the trick that is going to make your sauerkraut making process seamless, easy, efficient every time. You want to add water to this. Now we already added plenty of salt in here. I used to add brine water, so instead of adding just plain filtered water, I would actually add salt to the water and add this, but I've realized that it's not necessary, and it makes the kraut water a little bit too salty, and which makes it harder to drink. And drinking sauerkraut water is actually incredibly beneficial for our health. So what I'm going to do now is add filtered water into the pot to cover the stones. I'm going to pause for a second to make sure I'm not adding too much. And I'm going to add a little bit more. You want to make sure the stones are basically lightly covered in water. This is one reason I love this particular type of German crock, because it has a moat. This moat is what makes this process completely pain-free for me, especially after failing miserably trying to do it in glass jars. So we cover it, and what we do now is we put water in the moat. So what happens is the lactic acid bacteria and the bacteria that are in the cabbage are going to ferment, do their thing, create all kinds of wonderful things for us, neutralize some of the harmful things that raw cabbage has, and like nitrates, and make it bioavailable for us. As we eat it, it helps us to digest food. It is just a wonderful food. But the bacteria, they release carbon dioxide, and they push out the oxygen out of this jar through here. And when you fill the moat with water, oxygen can get back in. So this becomes an anaerobic environment, no oxygen, which is exactly what we need for this kind of fermentation. The reason that I failed miserably with ball jars was because one way or another, air would get to my cabbage. And no matter what I did, I think it had to do with the heat in my apartment as well. It was just too hot. I couldn't keep the cabbage underneath its own brine, and even when I did, somehow it just was not working for me. If it works, power for you, but this is the tried and true approach I have used for years now. So now I'm going to pour water into my little moat, which I think is a lot of fun. I'm pouring it here, although normally what I would do is move this to its location in my kitchen. This is now pretty heavy, okay? This is another example of a workout in the kitchen, okay? I'm gonna try that again and make it look less embarrassing. Okay, tighten the cord. There we go. Okay, yeah. I need to work out more. That's just the bottom line. But, okay, that's heavy. So, normally, you don't want to do this too far away from where it's finally going to, okay? Or you want to get somebody to carry it if you can't do it yourself. So, now what we do is wait, okay? So a couple of things that are going to happen that are fun. As the fermentation process goes underway and the bacteria are releasing carbon dioxide, something interesting happens. It starts to burp. When I first did this successfully, maybe a week into it, a couple of days into it, I started hearing sort of this noise in my apartment. It was like a bloop, bloop. It was basically a kind of like a plop burp type of thing, and I'm alone and I'm thinking, what is going on in here? Ghosts, what? And I was kind of walking around my apartment trying to find this sound, this mystery sound, when my gaze fell upon this crock and the moat, and I just saw the little bubbles like bloop bloop, and it was really fun. It was actually kind of hilarious. So that will happen, and it's perfectly normal. It's burping, it's just doing its thing, and actually it does it more once it's basically ready. Another thing that you need to keep in mind, or that happens, is that the water in this moat will evaporate eventually. After a couple of days, when you start, it'll start to go down. You'll watch it every day. I mean, this is another one of my kitchen pets, right? So every day I sort of look at it, and you're going to notice it's going to go down. Now, you don't want to let it dry up. Now, you don't want to let it dry up. Technically, then it wouldn't be a seal, right? You always want to make sure this is covered. Now, have I ever let it dry up? Yes, I have. And the first time it happened, I freaked out. I opened the lid to make sure everything was okay. Technically, you're not really necessarily supposed to be opening the lid and breaking the seal, but I did. I've done pretty much everything that you can think of, and my sauerkraut always comes out right. So trust in the process. Even though you can let the mold dry, don't. Pay attention to your kraut pot. It is working for you. It's going to provide you with some wonderful nourishments, and you want to take care of it. The final question for now is, how long do we wait? How long does it take to make sauerkraut? Minimum a week. I've tried week-old sauerkraut, 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and my preference is 3 weeks. Now, I've also been in a pinch before. I don't like being without sauerkraut. I usually time things right, unlike this week. But basically, when I'm down to a jar or so, I start making sauerkraut. Maybe 2 jars, I start making sauerkraut again. But I've been in a pinch before and eaten week-old sauerkraut. That's perfectly fine as well. However, this is just one of those things where you're going to experiment yourself. You're going to try it. You're going to be what I like to call a connoisseur in the kitchen. In this case, a sauerkraut connoisseur, your own sauerkraut connoisseur, expert. 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, no big deal. You just have to do a little bit of planning and trial and error. In this kitchen, we're going to wait 3 weeks, and we'll be back, and I'll show you what to do. Welcome back, guys. Our sauerkraut is ready. I am so excited. And it's actually been a little over 3 weeks, about 3 weeks and a half, 26 days. So almost a month. It feels like time has gone by really quickly. And it's not just because it was only a couple of seconds for you. It's that I've been extremely busy making videos for you guys. So it felt like time just went by. So very excited. Let's look at our sauerkraut. Now for the, let's call it post-production, we're going to need a couple of quart jars. And this is what, you know, the measurements that I know I'm going to get from my 10 liter German crock pot, which is about, what is it, 2.3 gallons, 2.3 gallon capacity of my beautiful German crock pot. So we have 4 quart jars, which is what I know I'm at least going to get. A spoon, a slotted spoon. You want something like a pasta type spoon to scoop out the kraut. I'll be showing you in a sec. And this can be extremely helpful. It's a funnel, but it's a wide mouth funnel that fits perfectly in a wide mouth ball jar. And that is what we want. Or it's not necessary, but it is extremely helpful, as you will see. So a couple of things that happened in the last 3 weeks and a half. I had to top up the moat. As you guys saw, we filled the moat with water, and I topped it off a few times. Immediately within a day, it was burping. I told you it would sort of bubble up, and that's a good sign. I actually checked the sauerkraut yesterday to make sure everything was a-okay. And you can do this too, although you don't want to get too carried away. The process works, okay? That is why I use the German crock pot. But if this is your first time, I understand you might want to open the lid, as you're going to see me do in a sec, and check to see whether the kraut is still covered in brine water, or that's basically it. That's really all you want to see. But you don't want to disturb the fermentation process unnecessarily, especially if you're not using a German crock pot. As soon as we put the lid back on, it takes a little bit of time, but the bacteria and everything sort of push the oxygen out. It becomes anaerobic. It's basically completely sealed. There is no oxygen inside the crock pot. That's how the bacteria is able to ferment and not rot, not give us any unwanted fungus, etc. That can happen with other methods if you let the brine water, if the kraut is not covered in brine water. Okay, so we're going to pop open our German crock pot. And you're going to hear a pop. Okay, you're going to hear a pop. Boom. You heard that little bit of a boop, boop. And it is beautiful. I'm going to try to show you. It smells fermented. It's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to take the stones out. Okay, I'm going to put them aside. Okay, and now remember the part where we put some of the outer cabbage leaves to sort of blanket cover the crown. Now we're going to take those leaves out. And this is what they look like. They are fermented themselves, but we are not going to eat these. So here are my cover leaves. Oh, they're pretty. And I'm going to put them aside. And you can throw those away. So my crown is it's so beautiful in there, and you're going to be able to see it. And I have, you know, sort of a modern art painting going on here. Some people make a lot of money for something like this. Okay, this is, I'm going to also get Egg Baby out of harm's way here because I don't want him to be suddenly a pink baby. So basically, we want to start and understand that this is a messy process. So another thing that you want to do is sort of pour the water. You can sort of see it out of the mold. Oh man, so beautiful. I want to show you what this looks like, okay? Let's see. Super pink goodness. Check this out. It just sort of happens to be the color of the spoon. I didn't plan that, but that is the beautiful, beautiful crowd. And we're going to be putting it in the jar. You know what else I needed that I didn't get? A ladle, which I am about to get here in a little bit. So you go like so. Oh, and by the way, you want to try it. So immediately, I already knew this was good because what I did was I sort of went under the big leaves yesterday when I opened it to make sure that it was okay. I tried it. And that is how you're going to know. So you immediately try it. So I have a gorgeous piece of sauerkraut and I'm going to try it. Tangy, delicious. You're not going to get this at the store, I promise you. So good. Okay, moving on. So this is, apart from the fact that I love to use purple cabbage because it's got another type of nutrient profile and even more powerful than the white cabbage. It is just so ridiculously gorgeous. Look at this. It's a fuchsia. It's like a bright fuchsia. Forgive me, I'm still chewing my crowd. Okay, so I'm packing it down as I go. You want to try to fit as much as you can in one jar. So why do I use a 10-liter crock? Well, I thought it was going to be the best that I could do. In this particular brand that I love has a 26-liter, which is, what did I say? Mine was 2.3 gallons. That is twice as much. It's a 26-liter. I would have loved to do that. I would have loved it, loved it, loved it. But spaces of the essence, where we're talking fermented products, one fridge is challenging sometimes. So really what it comes down to is your space. Not only counter space for something as big as a 26 little liter crock pot, but you know, this is going to yield me at least 4 jars. I know that. I will see if I get a little bit more because I think I was being overzealous to make sure I showed you a good recipe. So if I did twice as much, I would probably have something like 8 bottles, and I just don't have enough space currently to do that. Someday when I do, I will absolutely do it because this will last indefinitely in the fridge. Okay, months, years. I do this in batches, just like this, and I don't have to do this now for probably 3, 4, 5 months. It's getting to be fall right now, and to me, I just feel like we're in the spring. Like, look at this, look at this. It's just, the color is absolutely just mesmerizingly pink. I mean, look at this. Look at this. It is awesome. Okay, so almost one to go. I filled it up about this much. Now I'm going to do another one. I'm going to put it here so that you can see me do another one. So we're going to repeat the process. Okay. Once again, let me reiterate. Do not do this wearing nice clothes because you will regret it. Okay, the stain from this is no joke. Either wear an apron or, you know, a hangout type of t-shirt that you don't mind getting messed up. And this is so much fun too. So we were talking, or I was talking about this being a good character building exercise, right? Chopping up the crowd for your children, for your, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, you know. But this is the part where they get to see the fruits of their efforts, or the fruits of your efforts, at least once. You know, the first time it's going to be kind of exciting. After that, it'll probably get old for them. They won't care. But man, these bacteria just sort of did this for us, for me, in this kitchen. I mean, the wonder of nature never ceases to amaze me. There are so many things that we can do ourselves. We think it's harder than it is, but it isn't. And then it's the best product. There will never be a product better than the one you can make in your own kitchen. There just won't. Or your mom, or your grandma, or your sister, or your brother, or somebody you know, okay, your friend. Somebody who has a face whom you know. Okay, boom. Second, gorgeous crow bottle. Third. Okay. Oh, oops. Okay. What else can we talk about? Oh yeah. So this is plain kraut, right? I didn't get fancy this first time around. Look, it's just plain, gorgeous, beautiful, amazing sauerkraut. And actually that is what I prefer. But you can start to get fancy, although I recommend the first time you do this just plain, because you want to see what it's like. You always want to have a base, a baseline before you start adding other flavor. And by other flavor, I mean, typically people add caraway seeds, they add dill. In other countries, they add shredded carrots, shredded apple, I mean, shredded, or, you know, slices of radish. One time I did carrots. I did sliced carrots, and it was fine. One thing that I often don't take the time to do is garlic, and garlic is phenomenal for anything. So you add garlic to this, it's only going to enhance it, and you can eat that garlic. But I love plain sauerkraut. You have to remember that this is a process, and if you flavor it, you're going to, let's put it this way, I'm not going to say get stuck with, but you're going to have several months worth of kraut with that one flavor. So you best be sure you get it right. When I did dill and caraway is very strong. I had no idea what caraway seeds tasted like, and it's almost like anise. I can't even give you a good description right now. My apologies. I can't really think of it, but it was too aromatic for me, and the dill too. So it was okay, but I much rather just have plain kraut, frankly. Now you could get a small crock pot. They have a 5-liter. My mom has that, so it's a smaller, and like experiment on the side. That would be cool. I don't have the inclination or the time to do that, and like I said, I've already experimented with some flavors, and I'm good. I'm good. I'm okay with my plain sauerkraut, which is amazing and which gives me all the benefits I ever need from kraut, from a magnificent fermented product. Okay, so we have our third bottle now. Ready. Okay. It's a little messy, but believe me, this is nothing compared to what it's been like in the past. When I was first doing this, man, you go through a process of what is going on. But I've done that for you, and now you know sort of the best way to do it. And you can see how this funnel is helpful. And I think in the past, I think I've always had a funnel. But if you try it without it, it's not going to be as fast. Gorgeous jar. Don't forget to pack it down. So some of you may say to me, Olivia, I mean, this isn't easy necessarily. I mean, it's not hard. It takes some time, but why can't we just buy it? By all means, if you have the means, buy it. But I'm telling you right now, the taste of what you have in your kitchen does not compare. And let's talk about what you can buy first of all, okay, as I do this. In the store, there's a very, very, very popular brand that I have tried that is unpalatable to me. It is so not good. It's astounding to me. People pay over $10 for a jar of about this much, I think, a little less, I would say, and it's definitely not pink. It does not have purple cabbage. That would cost them a lot more money. So it's just white kraut, your average health food store, and kraut is short for sauerkraut. Don't like it. If you try, I tried that and I thought this is not good. This is not good. I was not as polite about it. And I was astounded. And if that's what you try, and you think, wow, I don't like sauerkraut, and that's all you ever have, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. You have to try homemade, somebody's homemade, if not yours. There is a sort of artisan here, and these people are popping up more and more, especially in certain kinds of cities, more probably on the coast, but I'm in Texas right now, and there's a wonderful, wonderful local artisan here, but you will pay. You will pay for that. Okay, so I've got my 4, and I'm still going to talk about this, but I got to focus for a moment here. Okay, yeah, definitely have one more jar, but yeah, so I'm going to grab one more jar. actually grabbed 2 because I did really well. Okay, there's my spoon. So filling my 5th jar, but let me tell you what this is. 32 ounces, 32 ounces, and a little 16-ounce jar of non-purple kraut, although I did notice there was a purple one last time I went to the co-op. It was $10 to $12. Okay, $10 to $12. This whole thing, the cabbage, I believe it's been 26 days, but I was definitely trying to calculate in the store. Probably cost me something like $13 total for all the cabbage that you saw in the beginning of the video, and I didn't use it all either. Let's just talk about the high quality real salt I use. Let's just say $15. The whole thing cost me, and that's probably being generous. Okay. Another reason why I don't usually buy this is because even in the best of cases, what you're going to see in the label is sea salt. What is sea salt? What kind of sea salt? What ocean? Where did it come from? Did you just buy the cheapest bulk sea salt you could find so that you could put sea salt on the label? I don't. Salt is so important, and the bad kind of salt is so harmful for you that I want to make sure the best goes in my body. You're making all this effort, you want the best ingredients, and look how much I'm yielding. So in some cases, you might actually see someone, especially now I've noticed a lot of products, natural products have Himalayan salt in them, and that's great, but if you've seen my salt video, you know that the quality of Himalayan salt is dependent on a lot of things and somewhat suspect unless you really do the research. So if you're going to buy it, make sure it's somewhat of a local product and that at the very least the label says sea salt, but understand what you're getting. Another thing that's very important, another thing that's you have to keep in mind is that, and I'll show you this in a second, the portions, but you want to have fermented vegetables with every meal. Okay, I have sauerkraut every single day, not with every meal, but usually breakfast and dinner. And at lunch what I have is other fermented vegetables. So I have a different variety of fermented vegetables that I eat, and one of them is sauerkraut. So you're eating this every day, and it's about a tablespoon to 2. I'll show you what a portion is sort of like. So if you buy a tiny little 6-ounce jar, you know, that's going to go quickly. All right, so I've got 5, and I think that's going to be enough. Now check this out, okay? So this is the sauerkraut juice that has sort of drained to the bottom. You can see it, and now we want to pack it tight. We want to pack it tight so that I can fit some more, and because we're maximizing space. But look what all those cabbages at first in the video turned into. Look at how compact it can get, and look at the kraut water rising. Look at that. Isn't that just awesome? So I'm going to make space in all the jars and do. Okay, I had already done this one. Packed the jars. Actually, don't want to block your view. Okay, pack. I cannot emphasize just how gorgeous this color is. And it's not just the color. That purple cabbage really adds a very special flavor to the kraut. Oh man, this one was good. I did good in this one. I'm not getting as much space here. But look at this water. It's like a little bit of a kraut symphony. I can, maybe put some Mozart and try to play it to them. I'm not a nerd. Just no way. Don't tell anyone. Okay, so Kraut is one of the most incredible sources of vitamin C that you can eat, and it is completely bioavailable. Your body can use this vitamin C, and so every day I know I'm getting plenty of vitamin C, which is really, really important for a variety of things. I'm also getting probiotics. I'm getting digest enzymes, which are really important. So many wonderful things from sauerkraut every single day. Okay, so I packed them down, made more space so that I can then top all these guys off. But actually, before I do that, I want to show you before I have my jars filled in beautifully, I want to show you what 2 tablespoons, what a portion is, okay? So, and you can see, let's talk about how we chopped this off, how we chopped it, how I chopped it, and how it came out. So this is really, really nice right here. I mean, but they're still kind of big. So you can chop in some of the edges, you know, big piece like this. I don't mind this at all. You can chop your kraut even finer. My mom and her boyfriend, he's sort of a kraut master now too, and he cuts it extremely fine. You can do that. I don't mind these sort of bigger chunks. That's just me. Okay, so very important, how much kraut you eat per meal. Kraut is a condiment. You don't want, this isn't a meal, okay? You don't want to OD on cabbage. And cabbage, one has to be very careful with eating too many cruciferous vegetables to begin with. But all the different goitrogens and the bad things that can be in cabbage are rendered inert, like they basically get nullified by the fermentation process. But this is still just a condiment. It's a digestive aid. So we usually have about, it depends on the meal, I'd say about this much. Some days I'll have a little bit more, but this is a portion that goes on my plate. You can have a little bit less, a little bit more, but for the most part, this is the portion, okay? And now I'm going to top off the jars. Some more. Sauerkraut helps our digestive system produce stomach acid, which is supremely important. It starts the entire digestive system. It helps it digests food, right? Acid. So, and most people are deficient in stomach acid. So the kraut is helping your stomach digest. At this point, I don't need the funnel anymore. And I'm actually basically out of kraut here. But I want to completely fill the bottle. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to take this 5th one that I thought was good to go and take from it to completely make sure that these bottles are filled. You don't want too much air, okay? You're going to then seal them and they're going to be in your fridge for months. You want them to not have too much air at the top. Make sure that they stay good for a long time. So this jar that is basically going to be half full is going to be the first jar I'm going to use. Okay, definitely just drop some on the floor. 3-second rule does not apply, especially with wet food. Maybe with any food. The capacity for this to compact itself it's just incredible to see. And then look at this. I can't get enough of the way the salt water, the kraut water just sort of rises like this. Boom. If Mozart were to do a symphony, an ode to sauerkraut, I think it would be some kind of, I think it would be called Ode in Fuchsia, or, you know, something like that. Can you just look at this pink? It's a burst of color, of spring, of life, really. And I mean, it can be any season, but I mean, I'm associating this kind of with summer and spring. But the wonderful thing about sauerkraut and fermented vegetables, and why so many people in the past figured this out, was so that they could have vegetables for the fall and the winter. When people used to live by the seasons, they wouldn't have many fresh vegetables during the fall and winter, and this is how they would make up for that. And that is actually, well, I wouldn't say that's what I do, but I make sure that in the summer and spring, when I'm getting sort of the best quality vegetables, that I make as many pickles as I can, etc. And then I have all that through the winter, and it's wonderful. These days, in the majority of the developing world, we are so privileged to be able to have sort of vegetables all year round, even though things are seasonal. We do get a lot of things, a variety of things. So we are not left without fresh vegetables, basically. But do understand that when things are not in season, they cost you a pretty penny. Okay, so there we go. This is where we want to get to. Okay, this is the culmination of our effort. And that is a jar that it's done. And you can see it's basically covered in kraut juice. And now I've basically gotten there with all of them. And look at that. What did I tell you? 4 jars, right? I was trying. I even got a 6th empty one. I mean, I was definitely being overzealous, but this is my 5th jar. So I already knew, because I've done this a lot of times, that this is what I was going to yield. But I thought I had a little bit more. I didn't. It's okay. It's okay. We have to adapt to life as it comes. That is part of the key to being happy and healthy. Adaptation. And in order to adapt, we have to be nourished. In order to think on our feet, in order to be the best sort of versions that we can be of ourselves, we need to eat the best foods we can. And that is why we want to eat something like sauerkraut every day. Now my cutting board is perfectly fine and clean, so I'm picking up some of those wayward. There we go. So I have a little bit of juice right here, and I'm just going to pour it top off every jar. Beautiful. And I actually want to top off this one a little bit more. You can't see it, but okay. I had some kraut. You can see it a little bit in the rim here. That's not good. You don't want that. So that even though the water I put in the mold is filtered, I don't want that. Okay. So I'm gonna rinse my hands, and before I seal these, actually, no, we're going to seal them. We're going to seal them now, okay? You want to use the traditional metal ball lids. You don't want to use plastic lids with these because you want a perfect seal. And I'm going to rinse the bottle now real quick because this was a bit of a messy process. So just rinse your bottles. I'll wipe them in a sec. I don't need that. Rinse. Rinse. And what I'm going to do is wipe my bottles dry. Oh my God, look at this. Is that a burst of joy or what? Okay, so I'm wiping my bottles. These are ready to go in the fridge, but they're gonna stay out here for a little bit because they're beautiful and we want to see them. We want to see them. And I'm trying to clean this area because we're not done. And this is not the last thing to do. Okay, so got a couple of things that were messy. I'm putting them in the sink. I'm going to sort of rinse my cutting board real quick. Going to wipe the counter. Don't need that. Boom. There we go. So what else is there to do? We just filled 4 gorgeous, gorgeous bottles of kraut. Well, one thing before I forget. You want to dry your lids. And you want to write the date, okay? You might think it's not important, but it's always, always helpful. And another reason it's helpful, I have given beautiful, beautiful, wonderful jars of kraut to people. To me, it's such a wonderful present if the person appreciates what you're doing and what they got. This may be cheaper than commercial, but by no means was it cheap in any way to make or to do. It cost money, time, and effort. And when you receive a gift like that someone has made, it's special. It's special. For me, giving something like this away is so I'm giving you a little part of my soul that I've made in the kitchen. So it's October 2018. And that's what I do. I do month and year. Okay. A Sharpie is a must in the kitchen. Okay, so we have our jars labeled, and now what I have here is an empty container. And what I'm going to do, and actually this used to be easier, I just rinsed my funnel. That's not going to work. I knew this. So I'm going to grab that empty ball jar, and give me a sec. Okay, this is what I grabbed. I'm improvising. This funnel actually used to have a little silicone thing in here that was, I forget what it would be called, but it was basically like something that could, a strainer. It had a strainer. I lost it. I have no idea where it is. I'm convinced it's somewhere in this kitchen. I don't know what happened to it. It's a big mystery, actually. So I have this other strainer that I'm going to put here, and what I want to do is I want to collect this sauerkraut juice. Sauerkraut juice is incredibly beneficial. It's a tonic that helps you with in your digestion. I'll show you in a sec, but basically it's a byproduct of the sauerkraut making process that you don't have to throw away. It's another benefit of making sauerkraut. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I kind of get rid of whatever the heck is in this moat. Okay, in this case, there was some stray kraut juice, but I got rid of it because I don't want that right now. Okay, so I'm getting my strength on. Okay, that was not smart. Remember when I said I needed a ladle? That's why I needed a ladle. So I'm going to get a ladle. Okay. Ladle. Seriously, I'm not trying to embarrass myself on purpose. That's the problem sometimes with making things months apart. You learn valuable lessons in the kitchen and then you forget them. It's a constant learning process. Life is a learning process. Being healthy is a learning process. So it's okay. So absolutely don't do what I just did. Get a ladle and ladle the juice out. I think I told you guys earlier in the video, although I don't quite remember because it was so long ago for me. So if I repeat myself, forgive me. But essentially, what was I wanted to, I totally forgot what I wanted to say. I still forgot what I wanted to say. It's so frustrating. Okay, if it comes back to me in a couple of minutes, you will find out. So, ooh, a little more sauerkraut. Just going to put it here to eat a little bit later. got my kraut juice. I still have more, but I want to put it in my next bottle. I have to re-wipe the board because somebody made a mess. I think it was Egg Baby. Okay. Still don't remember what I wanted to say. It's kind of killing me. I think I can survive though. Okay. We're going to put the funnel. No, we're not because it doesn't fit. Okay. No big deal. No big deal. Look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Gotta wipe the counter again. Okay. Cleaning in the kitchen is best done as you go along. If you are one of those people that sort of cooks and everything's a mess and it sort of looks like a war zone in your kitchen after, I feel for you a little bit. I mean, there are times when I do that, but I find it easier to sort of clean the mess a little bit at a time as I go, and it just makes my life easier in general. So I've got, look at this deep, deep sort of magenta, fuchsia, purple combination. It's like, you know, a deep red wine. So still not done. We still have more. I'm going to label some more out. Making kraut is a very giving process, and that is a wonderful thing. In many times when you make things, there are byproducts to certain things. In this case, I get the kraut water, and I'll show you just how to drink it. Got a little bit at the end here, and I think it's going to be safe for me to do what I did earlier, but not make a mess. Okay, you guys think I can do it? Okay, we'll see, okay? Yeah, okay. Boom. Boom. Oh. So that's a little bit more kraut. Don't want to waste any. Don't want to waste any, okay? Look at that. So I'm not going to top that off. We know what's going to happen if I try to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store it like this. And I often do this. I just store it in another ball jar. So this is final wipe. Final cleanup. Let me grab a lid. Okay, I'm using a plastic lid because I will be drinking this within the next couple of weeks regularly. So look at the bounty we yielded. This is a gallon of sauerkraut, and basically a half gallon of sauerkraut juice for approximately, I would say, $15. A little less, a little more, but it's no comparison to what you'll be able to get at the store. Not only are you going to pay a lot more, but it's not going to taste as good. If you get it from a local artisan, it will taste good, probably. You just have to see what they're doing. And it's going to be flavored, because that's the appeal, right? By the way, jalapenos is a flavor that I've seen, and I know a lot of you like hot things like that add flavor, like peppers, jalapenos, that kind of stuff. You can add that. I know a lot of you like hot stuff, so that is something. Don't make it too hot. Okay, that's not conducive to your health, but something to add a little bit of a flavor or a kick is fine. Sauerkraut is one of the healthiest foods you can eat on earth, and it is so giving. A little bit of it goes a long way with almost every meal. I find it extremely easy to eat at dinner. It's delicious, actually. I love it with breakfast. Eggs, bacon, and by the way, butter. Butter and kraut are amazing. So when I have this with breakfast and there's butter on the eggs or on the vegetables, and then afterwards you sort of soak the kraut in the butter and eat it, oh, it's to die for. It's delicious. There's so much wisdom in ancient traditions, in old time traditions that a variety of cultures have pioneered for us. Kraut is something multiple regions of the world have been doing for hundreds of years, and there's a reason. In the past, people lived a long time, and there are a lot of reasons, and I'll be talking about many of them in different videos, but longest lived peoples and traditional peoples all over the world ate fermented foods in some form or another every day. And one of those ways that we can do in modern times is one of the things we can eat is sauerkraut. It wasn't necessarily hard to make, it's just a little bit involved. But you saw it's possible. Anything is possible. And I have spent months and months trying to figure this out because I could never find a good enough recipe, really. And I have experimented, trial and error, and you've heard everything that I've done so that you can do it and not waste your time and your money. And then this is a skill that you know forever. This is a project that you can do with your family, and it yields a lot. And if you have space, if you have more space than I do, you can make more. If you have less space, you can make less. It will take you less time to make less. Obviously, not the time to wait for the kraut to get done, but the time it takes you to actually chop the cabbage and make it. Like I said before, it's a wonderful gift as well, but I don't give this lightly either. If somebody's going to appreciate and benefit from it, someone you love, then absolutely. If you want to teach them something, but this takes a lot of time and effort. And if that person is probably going to throw it away, I wouldn't give it to them, okay? And I have. That's why I'm saying that. I know that's happened, okay? It's a little bit sad. How do you know when they don't get back to you, right? When you give something to someone and they don't rave about it, that's probably because they don't know what to say. They're a little bit embarrassed, and that's okay, you know. There's a gentleman who said he loved sauerkraut. He was German, and we hit it off. It was like I was moving, and he came to like check my apartment and whatnot, and I was so touched. We had such a great conversation. I gave him a jar of kraut, and he said he was going to have it, you know, with his girlfriend and whatnot, and then, you know, never heard back from him. So I'm pretty sure that he didn't. And that hurt my heart. I'm not gonna lie, that hurt. So when you give a piece of your heart away, make sure you're giving it to someone that matters or who matters to you. And it's okay if you do what I did and it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to. That's life. It's always better to open your heart than not. And you learn many lessons that way. But Olivia, you're talking about opening your heart with a recipe in sauerkraut. Guys, who you are, life, it's who you are is imbued in everything about you, everything that you do, the way you approach things in life. To me, what I eat and what I give my family to eat is supremely important. It's what helps us to build our health, our life, our bodies. And it's so special. It's so special. I don't take it lightly. There is a piece of my heart and soul in everything I do, including this sauerkraut. And by default, this video for you. So I hope you guys love this recipe. I hope you enjoy it. Please let me know how it went. It's a process, right? So I won't probably hear for a while from you guys, but let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you try different combinations, like with chili peppers, that kind of stuff. I would love to know the different things you guys try. Always remember, what you put in your body matters as much as what you put in your heart and your soul. It's part of who you are. It helps you to be who you are. I hope you guys have many, many, many wonderful and nourishing, delicious meals accompanied by a dash of wonderful spring, summer, gorgeous pink, fuchsia, purple sauerkraut. Okay, so for the sauerkraut water, you just want to have a little shot of it in the morning or before every meal to help you digest. It's a tonic. It's super concentrated. Basically, all the enzymes, all the probiotics, all the goodness in the kraut is concentrated in this water, and it will be incredibly beneficial. People who are familiar with the GAPS diet, the gut and psychology syndrome diet, they are very familiar with sauerkraut water, or at least they've read that it is a wonderful thing to start with, and to help you heal your gut, to help you heal your digestive system. So that is what you can use it for. You basically just want to, here I have a baby ball jar. Boom. And so I get to try here, and that's just a little bit, okay? It's concentrated. You don't want to have too much. So let me try this. Wow, it's strong. That's good. It's salty. But not too salty. Oh yeah. This is something I did want to mention. It's not what I have forgotten, and I know it's going to come to me like later, and I'm just going to be so annoyed. So a couple of shots of it. If it's actually kind of refreshing. It's probably super hydrating. Diluting it a bit is not bad either, but it's actually kind of pleasant, even though it's quite salty. So you can't go wrong, in my opinion, in the kraut making process. Okay, the more salt you put, it's definitely going to come out. So for the longest time, I used to put a lot more salt than what you saw me put in this video, and my kraut came out perfect. Sometimes a little bit salty, but it's a condiment, right? So if it's a little bit saltier, you put less salt in your food. Don't throw it out by any means, okay? So what I have done in this video and in this recipe is try to make it as perfect as it can be, so your kraut water also comes out pretty freaking good. But in the past, I have made it so salty that this was inedible. I could have diluted it, and I always meant to. I always store it in the fridge, and then I never drank it. I find that if you don't make it perfect, chances of you drinking it are probably not high, but it's possible. The reason I say that there is no going wrong in this process necessarily, especially with the German crock, right? That is already makes it airtight. Is that you're going to be probably a little bit afraid in the beginning. You're going to try to maybe add more salt. You're not going to be sure. I mean, this is why it took me months to figure this out. Do what I did, and it'll be fine. If you put a little bit more salt, you'll be fine. Try not to put less. Although I know I said about a tablespoon for about an inch of cabbage, you'll be fine, okay? And once you do it once, you'll know. You'll get a feel. Do this a couple of times, and you'll be a pro. Don't get discouraged. Don't ever get discouraged with more complex recipes, okay? You'll get it eventually, and I hope that this video will help you. I hope, and I know because I've gone through all the work already, that you will finally from the first time, get a product that works for you and that nourishes your body. So enjoy it.